Hello everyone, Brad Johnson here, and in this video we're going to be talking about psychic surgery. So if we're looking into the idea of psychic surgery, there's one gentleman on the planet that is quite well known that performs this type of psychic surgery, and we could know him as John of God. Now basically, what is the process here? If we're looking into psychic surgery, there are some people who say that they've been to some psychic surgeons and it didn't help. Sometimes there can be that idea of people that are superficial in regards to what they're willing to offer. But those who have been very genuine relating to psychic surgery, what is it that it entails? How are they able to do this? Well, John of God, in that particular way, could be seen as a channel or a medium in that particular way, and is able to connect with spirit, and that he aligns in that deep trance state, and he is able to perform this particular surgery. But what happens in this form of surgery? Is he just basically yanking out internal organs, or what is he doing? Well, basically, when you are aligned to an entity that is very sensitive to magnetism on a biological level. So biological magnetism. When they come through, this is again kind of an example of a being known as Cryon, who's basically being of magnetic service in that way. But again, looking into the idea of an entity that has a very strong sensitivity to biological magnetism. And when the surgery begins, the host, such as John of God, for example, will again perform the surgery and will begin to remove what has been termed as membranes. Now these membranes basically are pockets. It's kind of like looking if we had a gauge, a magnetic gauge, and we're actually able to scan the body and discover the areas of very intense magnetism. And that this intense magnetism of membranes contains a great deal of emotional pockets, or emotionally charged pockets. Basically what's happening is through the guidance of this entity that is going through this host in this trance state is basically opening up with a knife and being able to remove much of this membrane or these membranes that contain heavily emotionally charged pockets of information contained within its cellular structure. So it's basically like looking at a person who may be very, very stressed out, someone who just has a whole lot of different forms of emotional situations that manifest itself into the body. So a person who may have chronic illnesses, a person who may have, again, emotional, overwhelming situations that come up. All of these are just pockets. They are what creates the idea of disease. So we look into areas of our body, and some areas of our body is storing up more of these emotional pockets through these membranes than in other areas of the body. So again, this can do with physical ailments, this can do with emotional situations, with mental belief, etc. All of these contain membranes. And so basically, a psychic surgeon will go in there and being able to, through their entity, remove much of these particular types of membranes. And so basically when the person comes to, they feel like something has changed. They feel a lot lighter. Now, is this something that is permanent? Is this a permanent resolution to one's own problems? The answer is both yes and no. The whole idea here is that if you are willing to take the advice of the host that is telling you that I was successful in being able to remove much of the debris from your body that contained a lot of this emotionally charged magnetism. They may not explain it in that way, but that's giving an example here. And basically what you need to do right now is work on a life that is complementary to your body's health, that is complementary to your own emotional states, your own mental states, your own physical states. And they will basically give you this type of criteria in that way. If you are able to make these life changes and continue to operate and work in regards to what they suggest, then yes, this can indeed be a very permanent thing, because you are evolving yourself, you're connecting yourself, you're seeing the change, and you're running with that particular change. Now, if a person basically just looks at this whole situation with the psychic surgeon, and they had the operation, the surgery was successful, and now they basically say, oh, okay, that's great, now back into my hellhole of a life, right? This will not be permanent, okay? This will basically just recreate other membranes again that will start to emotionally store things up. So the whole idea here is that there is no quick answer, no quick response relating to how we are dealing with our emotional situations. That yes, the pockets can form in the body, that yes, we have technology, like again, working in the natural form, relating to the idea of psychic surgeons. There's also other particular aspects relating to magnetic healing, radionics, orgone, etc., that can also assist based upon intention, that can help to clear the deep pockets of heavy magnetism, of emotionally charged pockets, and actually helping to dissolve them, because that's basically what happens. They're kind of like tumors. They're small tumors within the body, and they represent these membranes that are actually being surgically removed, right? And so many of us have them. Many of us that have, again, a lot of these emotional conflicts, there's just these small tumor-like membranes that are actually being detected through, again, an entity that comes through a channel or a host and is able to open that person up and extract much of these membranes. That's it. That's the entire secret to much of regards to psychic surgery, is that they're able to just function as this kind of magnetic gauge, this magnetometer. And they're able to just to scan the body and find the areas that are causing havoc, that are causing this heavy emotional intensity, and are able to remove those appropriate membranes. So that when this person wakes up, that cellular memory that contained all of that particular emotional state has now been heavily reduced or perhaps even entirely removed. And so now they feel like a different person. Oh my God, it's a miracle. Well, it's not really that it's a miracle. It's just that magnetically, biologically, magnetically, this was able to be detected and removed through, again, the proficiency of the channel, of the medium, of the host. That is all that John of God is doing. Period. So, I don't see myself doing this with the Dronas in any way, shape, or form like that. That's not the type of vibration that he fits. But yes, it is possible that you can have some very good psychic surgeons able to go into these trance states and being able to detect the magnetism within the body that, again, is very heavy, very heavily polarized, and being able to remove these tumor-based membranes so that the body itself can now return into a state of feeling like a clean slate. And so now it is your responsibility to maintain all of that energy that has been shared with you pertaining to the host. The host has now said, okay, this has been done, follow these particular forms of criteria, and this will help you to remain this permanence, right? It's kind of like going into surgery for liposuction, right? You're basically going into surgery and you're allowing the liposuction to suck out all of the cellulite. Well, again, this is basically the same thing. Now, with that operation that took place, you can now change yourself and move into a complementary direction that encourages further weight loss, or you can dive right back into the old habits again. And again, just start to gain more and more weight. Well, the same thing applies as it pertains to psychic surgery, is that you can have these operations, they can be done, and they can last for a while. You know, there's people that can last maybe for 6 months, a year, a couple of years, etc., until all of this membrane, all of this highly polarized emotional pockets of tumors start coming back into the body again. So again, this is not a permanent solution unless you're willing to change unless you're willing to evolve into that level. The whole idea is that really, we may not even require the idea of psychic surgery. It's all about being able to work together with our emotional states, that we're looking into areas that are heavily chaotic, which represents all these squiggly lines here. And all we're basically doing with our own eyes is looking at that particular distortion. Looking into all of these waves of distortion. And basically what happens is we become encapsulated with all of that emotion because it's so alluring, it's so addicting, it's just so powerful. It's, as I've talked about in one previous video, is that the reason why we're so succumbed to heavy emotion is because of the shakeup it makes in our reality. When something just feels out of the ordinary, we are programmed to look into it and say, oh, what is this? What is this? And you still want to scrutinize, you still want to look at it, you still want to analyze it. And this is basically what's creating that reciprocal shakeup within yourself, because you are feeding the melodrama pertaining to those squiggly lines, to that distortion. What we are basically attempting to train ourselves to do is realize that we're looking at this as a gauge. So this is basically our gauge. And as we observe it, not attached to it, we now create harmony that again is intense positively, but it holds a different geometrical structure. So when we are basically going through these emotional states, and we feel that again psychic surgery can help with that, etc., that's one particular tool. Now, psychic surgery is a tool. It is not a permanent fix, right? Based in regards to what was previously discussed here. Really what it just comes down to is being able to withdraw the addiction to feeling that you need to follow the emotional states so heavily that you now become contaminated with them through yourself. Basically what we're attempting to do is grow our discernment to such a level that when these very heavy distortion, emotional states come into our reality, we can close a gate. We basically close the gate and saying, no thanks, that is not for me, that situation is not my alignment, I'm going this way. That's basically what we're attempting to do to train our discernment. And sometimes it can be challenging because we're seeing family members, we're seeing friends, we're seeing people who have meant a lot to us in our lives. And they can basically create these heavy waves of distortion. It's a very, very challenging thing to go through. Even my own personal experiences can definitely confirm that. But what we're attempting to do is close that gate. Hey, I love that person on the other side of the gate. I love everything that they are. But what they are broadcasting to me right now is not something that is going to benefit me. It's taking me out of the comfort zone. So I'm taking the gate and I'm closing it down. This comes through a lot of inner work. We need to really start to value ourselves. Because again, if we're constantly putting others ahead of ourselves all the time, then we are getting hit with these constant blasts of heavy, intense, polluting emotional energy. And it's just filling our body, and it will again create these membranes, these tumors. And again, this is basically what's going to store it up. This is what's going to cause weight gain. This is what's going to cause chronic illness. This is what's going to cause emotional distress. This is what's going to cause psychological aspects of damage, is when we constantly buy in to this. And we want to scrutinize, and we want to observe, and we want to continue, not even observe, but just want to analyze and scrutinize and go very, very deeper into the drama. And the moment you do that, there's no end to it. It gets more intense and more intense. It's like turning this knob that becomes harder to turn each time, but you're just so addicted to trying to turn it, right? So our key here is being able to notice that we can transcend the idea of psychic surgery or other particular types of healing tools if we're willing to just observe this as a gauge, pulling us into another perspective, turning our head and realize there is a positive alignment here. There is an opposite to every reaction, right? It's like into physics. For every action comes an equal and opposite reaction, right? So we're looking into the idea of observing this, moving into the positive ground, and being able to connect harmoniously with that energy that will counteract this, function as a gauge, and again, bring it into harmony eventually as we keep playing with the positive reinforcement. So that is how it is done if you're looking to transcend all of this pertaining to psychic surgery, pertaining to tools, etc. But in conclusion, psychic surgery, yes, if done genuinely, can be a very effective tool if it's something that you feel you want to consider. But what's most important is that when you're getting into psychic surgery, that you are taking very seriously the advice from the host to helping you transform your life. That's the key. That is how you make this permanent. All right? So that is what I wanted to share relating to psychic surgery. It can be a very real phenomenon, but you are the one in charge to making it last constantly throughout the years ahead. Thank you so much for watching. I am Brad Johnson, and of course, feel free to check out realitywhisperer.com for private sessions, digital courses, free media, and a lot more. Thank you again, and I look forward to speaking to you in the next video. Take care, namaste, and may it be well with you. Goodbye.